Good morning if you're in the US and waking up to NIO delivery numbers. So let's jump into a quick update about NIO, but also EV sales in general in October. And let's see what it means for NIO. So you probably already received an email about NIO delivered 5,555 vehicles in October 2020, which is a 100% increase year over year, and also delivering 31,430 cars in 2020 total, which is a 111% increase. So first of all, NIO finally breaking through the 5,000 delivery mark here, which is great, and also really nice year-on-year growth numbers, but always take in mind that last year, of course, has been really bad for NIO. So, but still, I think, well, we can still expect those triple-digit percentage growth numbers here to continue for a while. And also, let's take a deeper look at how these numbers are actually comparing. So here I'm jumping into my Excel sheet where I collect all the data about NIO, but also working on my valuation. Stay tuned for the update, obviously still working on that. But anyways, now let's jump into the monthly deliveries, how they are actually split between the models here. So you can see in October, NIO actually sold only 2,700 cars roughly of the ES6 model, and kind of stagnating the growth for the ES8, but really ramping the new EC6 model, so the Model Y competitor, if you will. So totally ramping up the sales numbers month on month here, and coming to more than 5,000 cars sold. So the interesting observation here is that the ES6 numbers are going down. So for me, this is actually a positive sign, because this is the lineup car that has the lowest sales price actually. So that should be good for the bottom line of NIO. And it's also good to see that it doesn't cannibalize the ES8 sales, which is the highest priced model and therefore the flagship, where many people actually were curious whether or not even the ES6 would already eat in the sales into the ES8. So high ES8 sales are always good. And then at the same time, well, yeah, now growing from nothing to more than 800 deliveries, obviously the EC6 here seems to be ramping quite nicely and seems to be a priority here by NIO. Now let's take a quick look at 2019 sales, and as you see, that was my comment about that sales have been on a low level in 2019, especially in July, and also still in August, when NIO was really facing lots of issues, for instance with a recall of the batteries and so on, but then already in September and October actually coming back to normal levels. So I would say this is also why the 100% year-on-year growth rates here now today are actually quite good to see, because they are coming from a more natural sustained growth level in the past. And you cannot really make the argument too much that NIO is only growing now because the past numbers have been really, really bad. Yes, this is something to consider from 2019 comparing it to today, but not so much in the last months of the year. So now this is more of a show that really now the scaling and demand is actually kicking in here. As always, I'm also benchmarking against competitors here, and today I already also got the new numbers, for instance for Li Auto, which is actually not a fully electric vehicle, it's more of a hybrid, but anyways, I have it in the benchmark here. So they sold 3,692 cars in October. And then also XPeng or XPeng, which sold around 3,040 cars in October. And this is now showing up in the month-on-month growth numbers, in the fact that NIO was growing the most here of those three Chinese brands, and followed by Li Auto, which once again is just a hybrid manufacturer here, not a fully electric car company, but still showing some solid growth here despite running out of the pre-orders in that matter of fact. But what is most noticeable here is the minus 13% of XPeng. So I think XPeng shows here that they are kind of running into trouble here. And my suspicion here is that this is due to the sales price cut of Tesla Model 3 in China. As I was actually pointing that out in previous tweets and also in previous videos, that I do think that the Model 3 price cuts will have a big effect on XPeng. They will be struggling because XPeng here actually is low priced and they have low margins, so they're actually still at a negative margin here. And now the prices of the Model 3 in China, as you can see here, are coming down, and this means that actually XPeng has nowhere to go in terms of defending their brand, defending their car sales, and also not having as much of a margin as, for instance, Tesla is having in this regard. If you look here at my other chart, so these are the margins, the situation. Of course, XPeng will be improving on that a little bit as the sales pick up, and I'm not worried about that. They will keep on selling more cars in the future. But as you've seen now today, basically in those October numbers, XPeng is impacted most here by this sales cut. NIO is not impacted, and Li Auto also seems to be doing fine so far. So for me, the 5,000 deliveries of NIO are in line with the expectations. They could be higher, they could be lower. Actually, for me, the most important part here is that we see a smooth ramp. Also, for instance, not like Tesla with the first month of the quarter being usually weak. Instead, NIO even shows monthly growths despite which quarter. And now we see a big ramp of the EC6 already. And now we need to see in the following months whether we see this trend continue. Also the trend regarding the XPeng sales, for instance. Now this is just the first month of the indications here, but so far this is all in line, and I will be now publishing my Q3 earnings previews first with my patrons, so I will now reflect those deliveries into actually financial targets for the Q3 earnings release, and later on also obviously make a video on that. But so far for NIO, the deliveries are looking good here, and also just did a comparison here with NASDAQ in comparison to NIO. So the year-to-date performance is of NASDAQ plus 25%, NIO obviously plus 730%, and the 1 month performance also negative for NASDAQ here, minus 3%, NIO up around 40% in the last 5 trading days, NASDAQ minus almost 5%, while NIO is up almost 13%. So in general, you could see that NIO is kind of a hedge here against this troublesome environment currently, although we have to say that past performance is no indication of future performance. But with today's delivery news, it seems to be on a solid fundament here. The investor expectations should be aligned with that. So I do think, even though we may get into some troublesome trading days with the upcoming elections and everything else that I mentioned in my previous videos, NIO should be hopefully doing fine based on this news of today and also everything else. So let me know in the comments below, are you excited about those delivery numbers, or are you maybe disappointed? Looking forward to hear more about the comments here. Put it down and then thumbs up, and see you in the next one. Bye.